Ben Shapiro is more Islamic than he is Christian. You might be wondering, how the hell is Ben Shapiro more of a Muslim than he is a Christian? Well, quite simply because he is a Jew. And what I am going to do here is present an argument that offers a critique of the Cold War notion promoted by Ben Shapiro, I might add, that there is this thing called Judeo-Christian values. My position is that from a strictly theological perspective, I understand that in terms of the international left, we have to use Matua Derrida and argue that there is no Islam, there is no Judaism, blah, 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 objectively speaking. But within the framework within which they operate, there is indeed a thing called Christianity, Judaism, blah, 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 blah. And basically, what I'm arguing is that within their different frameworks, Judaism is much closer to Islam than it is to Christianity, when you think about it. Furthermore, that there are no such thing as Judeo-Christian values, and there can't be Judeo-Christian values. Why is that? Because under a Christian cosmological framework, Christianity is the fulfillment, in other words, the replacement of Judaism. And so the two actually cannot coexist, cosmologically speaking. And so this is my argument. And in presenting my argument, my critique, I am going to be drawing upon Matua al-Ghazali. Number one, I begin with epistemic skepticism. So, Matua al-Ghazali was very suspicious of constructed categories. And so, that is what he sort of was skeptical of. So, when we begin with epistemic skepticism toward inherited categories, so in words like, in his work, like Deliverance from Error, which could be his most famous work, Matua al-Ghazali emphasizes that many widely accepted ideas are actually socially constructed rather than grounded in truth. So Matua al-Ghazali, he wants to separate what Islam is from the sort of social lived experience of Islam. If anything, you could liken this to the mission of C.S. Lewis, who came up with the notion of mere Christianity. That is this idea that Christianity is a body of propositions, irrespective of, culture and all of these different things. And Lewis was very interesting because the lived experience at that time of someone was that a Christian is someone who is loyal to the British Empire. And I've written about this before on my Substack, and will do again. It doesn't surprise me that Lewis wants to make sure that Christianity is apart from any nation, any sort of culture or thing, because he was a proud Irishman. And of course, he doesn't really give a rat's ass about the British Empire, does he? So what we see is a sort of mirror between Lewis and al-Ghazali. So that was the project of al-Ghazali. He wants, in his work, Deliverance from Error, to separate what Islam is from these sort of socially constructed truths, so to speak. And so the term Judeo-Christian values is not ancient. It emerges in mid-20th century America, especially during the Cold War. It was a way to construct a unified religious identity against atheistic communism, against the Soviet Union, essentially. So, from a al-Ghazali sort of pair of eyes, if you will, this already raises suspicion. If a category is politically constructed for contingent purposes, it lacks intrinsic theological necessity. And so that is what Mathur el-Ghazali argued. And so what is presented as timeless moral unity is actually historically contingent rhetoric. That's number one. Number two, the theological incoherence. So basically, in line with logic, Aristotle, so on and so forth, Mathur el-Ghazali would say that truth cannot contain contradiction. This is before dialectical materialism, I might add. We need not get into that right now. But al-Ghazali insists that truth is unified and non-contradictory. But Christianity traditionally holds that it fulfills and supersedes Judaism. So an example being covenant theology or abrogation of Mosaic law. Judaism conversely rejects core Christian claims, the Trinity, incarnation, messianship of Jesus, and so on and so forth. So, from a Mathur el-Ghazali pair of eyes, two systems that negate each other's core truth claims cannot be fused into a single coherent working body or value system, so to speak. So, therefore, Judeo-Christian is not a theological category, but a conceptual flattening. So, here is my very al-Ghazali conclusion with regards to point number two. A term that merges mutually exclusive truth claims obscures truth rather than clarifies it. Number three, misidentification of ethical lineage. So, this is my sort of second point. And so, Islam, as understood by al-Ghazali, affirms strict monotheism, tawheed, emphasizes law, essentially Sharia, as a comprehensive ethical system, maintains continuity with prophetic traditions, Abraham, Moses, and so on and so forth. Judaism shares these features much more directly than Christianity does, especially compared to the Christian emphasis on incarnation and Trinity. The Trinity is arguably not monotheistic in the sort of pre-Christian understanding of what that word means, and partial displacement of legal frameworks of faith in favor of faith-based salvation, depending on the tradition, of course. So, from a structural perspective, Islam and Judaism are both legal, monotheistic traditions. Christianity is theologically and metaphysically distinct with regards to this. So, again, from the sort of Mathur el-Ghazali perspective, the Judeo-Christian alliance label ignores real metaphysical affinities and instead constructs an artificial alliance, an alliance of convenience, you could argue. So, this is the other thing. Mathur el-Ghazali had a concept of illusion or heedlessness, the sort of idea of veiling reality, what he called hafla, heedlessness. So Mathur el-Ghazali, he frequently warns in his work about hafla, that is being veiled from reality by convention and rhetoric. This is a big sort of thing for him. So the term Judeo-Christian values functions as a veil, I would argue. It hides real theological disagreements. It recenters Western Christian identity as normative. It subtly excludes Islam, despite its closer alignment with Judaism on many fundamentals. Thus, the phrase is not just inaccurate, it actively distorts perception, which, for al-Ghazali, is an epistemic and spiritual problem. Number 5 would be the political instrumentalization of religion. So, for Matua al-Ghazali, religion must orient toward truth and salvation, not worldly power. Again, this gets back to my point about C.S. Lewis and the British Empire. So, the Cold War usage of Judeo-Christian values instrumentalized religion for geopolitical ends, essentially. And so, this reduces divine truth to a tool of identity formation. And so, the Matua al-Ghazali critique would be using religion as a political category corrupts its purpose and produces conceptual confusion. So, this is my sort of conclusion in a clean sort of thesis form, if you will. So, number 1, historically contingent. The term Judeo-Christian values is historically contingent rather than theologically grounded. That's number 1. Number 2, the term is logically incoherent, merging contradictory truth claims. Number 3, philosophically misleading. It obscures real affinities between Islam and Judaism. Number 4, it is epistemically dangerous. It functions as a veil over reality. And finally, number 5, it is spiritually compromised as a product of political instrumentalization rather than raw theological truth. No reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.